All right, everyone, let's get back to our seats.
I guess it's
All right, so Noah, our pre-law intern, is going to moderate this panel. We just want to thank you for being here. Thanks so much. Do not leave after the panel. We have a little bit of information for you and just some closing remarks, but enjoy. Thanks, Noah.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Noah Leitzwala. I'm also a pre-law student, and I am hoping to enter law school next fall in case there's any admissions officers listening. And we are so excited to present our very illustrious panel to you today. These are all law students, real-life law students, and they have come to share a little bit about their experience with us today. So if it's all right, we'll start with Lois. Could you all go down the line and introduce yourself and tell us what got you into law school? What motivated you? How'd you find out about it? Anything like that?
Yeah, my name is Lois. I'm a 2L at BYU Law School, and I didn't know what I wanted to do after I graduated from my undergrad, but I was interested in law school. I thought about it for a while, and I worked at a law firm as a paralegal for a year and a half. I'm doing immigration work, and I realized that I really liked it, and so I took that jump and just applied.
Oh yeah, it works. We're good. Okay, my name's Gracie, and I'm a 1L here at BYU as well. I didn't decide I wanted to go to law school until last July. I read Just Mercy, which is like such a stereotypical thing. Like I feel like a basic person a little bit. But I read Just Mercy, and in the book, the author Brian Stevenson talked about how much he hated law school. So it wasn't the restorative justice aspect excited me. It was the fact that he hated law school, and I was like, actually, I think that kind of vibes with me. Like, I think I'll hate law school too, and I think I should do it. And I had a lot of friends that wanted to go to law school, but I kind of made fun of them. I thought it was pretty lame. I thought law school was really only for corporate lawyers, and my experience with lawyers in the past has been like pretty negative, especially with the criminal justice system. And so like I said, I wasn't really interested in it, and then I read Just Mercy. He talked about how much he hated it. I said, I think I'll hate it too, but honestly, I think I need to do it because I feel like I want to understand a system that I feel needs some help. And so I decided to start studying for the LSAT right away, and then from there, the rest is history. Now I'm in law school, so yeah.
Okay, is this turned on? Mm-hmm. Okay. Hi, I'm Aliza Murad. I'm a 2L at the U. And when I came to law school, I feel like it was an interest of mine. This is also really stereotypical. I did debate in high school. So from that time, I was like, okay, I'm great at debate. I want to go to law school. I didn't really know what the process was like. I'm Pakistani American. I'm the first person in my family that's pursuing, a post-grad degree. So I didn't have much guidance. I did my undergrad at the U as well. So during undergrad, I interned at the federal court. And that kind of made me sure that, okay, I really like the legal field. I want to stay here. So I did that for a couple of years. I then worked as a paralegal at a law firm. I made myself 100% certain that this is what I wanted to do before I committed to law school. And then finally decided to pull the trigger a couple of years ago. So I'm in my second year now, and I love it.
Rachel Prickett Passy. I'm a 3L up at the U. I actually started out wanting to teach, and I was working as a paraprofessional in a special ed program, and I hated the way that the laws were written for my students. It drove me absolutely nuts. And so I was looking at my coworkers one day, and I'm like, well, if anybody's going to move this brick wall, I'm going to move the brick wall. And so 10 years later, here we are. It's been wonderful to learn a little bit about the legal system, to go to law school, and then see areas where I'd like to change, but also areas that I just have greater context and understand why the system works the way it does now. So it's changed my mind on some things, but on other things it absolutely hasn't, and so that's been kind of exciting. You can come from a non-traditional background and find value in a legal degree. You can do so much with it.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate that, and we're so happy to get to know you a little bit. Now, we all just had a mock class taught by Professor Augustine Adams, and that gave us kind of an idea of what a class would look like. But we'd also like to know what a typical day of a law student would be like. So, Rachel, if you wouldn't mind continuing and just give us a breakdown of what your typical day looks like, what a balanced day would be, and if there's any other responsibilities that pop up that you might have to manage throughout the day.
Yeah. So I was in the unique position in that I started law school with a 12-week-old baby. He was 3 months old when I started. So balancing new motherhood plus law, because learning the law is not just learning a new language of the law, it's learning a new culture, how lawyers think, how they interact with one another, what to do. And so I had to be really diligent and organized in how I spent my time. And so what I do is I take my 168 hours in a week and I categorize. This is when I study. This is when I'm going to be taking care of Neil, is my little boy's name. This is when he goes to daycare. This is who's going to be picking him up. This is where we're going to do meal planning. And so you just kind of compartmentalize each of your days. So a typical day starts at 5:30 when he wakes me up, get him ready, and then I drop him off at school. I treat school as much like a average job as what I can. I'm in the office at 8, I leave at 5. I try and keep it as much it doesn't always work, but I try and keep all of my studying and whatnot in that building. I come home, we have dinner as a family, I put him to bed, and then I go back to studying. From about 8 until 10 o'clock or so. And so days just have to kind of be really regimented. Weekends are very busy but super boring, and that's the only time that you have housework and laundry and grocery shopping that you have to do. But it's only 3 years. This is a once in a lifetime thing. You're only in law school once, hopefully, and so you just kind of structure your day that way.
All right, I agree with Rachel. It's all about organizing, especially as a 1L. I think I really struggled with that because law school isn't just about learning the law. It's also about changing the way you think and changing, it basically changes your brain chemistry in a way where you start to look at things in a totally different way. So at the start, I feel like a 50-page reading assignment would take me 3 hours, whereas now it might only take an hour. So first year of law school, I actually didn't organize my life very well. I learned that second semester. So I was kind of studying all day long. The first month of law school, I kind of burnt myself out because I was trying to memorize every single case I read and case brief and, try to do the most. And it didn't work out. I think by fall break, I was totally burnt out. But I will say second semester went a lot better because I did the same thing, setting boundaries. So I decided, I'm not going to start studying till 9 a.m. and I'm going to shut it at 8 p.m., no more studying at night, prioritizing my mental health, and that did, amazing. Second year is a lot different than first year though, because it's no longer just about classes. Most 2L and 3Ls, they are doing internships and working. So now it's kind of I'm at my internship, half the day, then I work for a couple hours, then I go to classes. So it's kind of all over the place, but I rely on my calendar for everything, and it gets me through.
So I'm currently in the midst of trying to find the balance as a 1L, but I would say a typical day is I try to treat it the same as what Rachel talked about, kind of like a job. So I come to the law school here. There's a library within the law school. I come at 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and then I usually stay here, do all my classes, all my homework that I can, and then I leave at 6 or 6:30. So usually 10-hour days, and I stay here for lunch. One thing, if you don't know about law school, this is not just BYU. I have friends at other schools for the most part. There are a lot of free lunches. If you didn't know that, there's a lot of free food involved in law school. So I appreciate that a lot. But I will usually just stay here the entire day and just accomplish the work that I can. Law school is it's different from undergrad in a lot of ways, but it feels a lot like a marathon. In undergrad, you have, 12 assignments on your Canvas to-do list, and you finish the ones that are due tonight or the next day. But law school is different in that it always feels like there's work to do. And so I think it's important to set boundaries about the time you're willing to spend and the things you're willing to give up to be a law student. And it's hard to know exactly right now as a pre-law student what those boundaries will be, and I think you just have to find that when you start law school. So it's not something to stress about now, like how am I going to manage this? You don't know until you're in law school. You don't know what it's like. You don't know the classes. You don't know the course load. So I think being aware of that is important, but it's not something that you should stress about right now, in my opinion.
I'm going to offer a procrastinator's perspective. I wish I had the best time management skills like everyone else does here, but I don't. And so my days actually look very different every day. I set my classes up on my night owl, so Mondays and Wednesdays I have class at 1, and so my day sometimes looks like I wake up at like 9 and get to law school at 10. And throughout the day, like I try to lock in, and do homework, but the truth is that I also spend a lot of time hanging out with friends at the law school. And one thing to know about law school is it's very social. Like these people, you're going to know them super well. You're going to be best friends with them, you're going to trauma bond, you're going to spend late nights with them. And so, like, it's inevitable. You come in and you sit down on a couch and you're like, I'm going to read for the next hour, but you end up chatting for like 15 minutes. So that's my experience. I come and try to do my homework and then I go to class. But a lot of the work that I do, I also do like at home at night, and that's just what works better for me. Like, I am the type of person that like at midnight certainly have the urge to get my life together. And so I'll like stay up and do research at like 1. And just to say, sleep is very important. So also consider that. But there are many ways to be successful. And like your day as a law student, like doesn't have to be like perfect. Like it's messy sometimes. Yesterday I came to law school at 10 in the morning, and then I didn't leave campus until like 8, but I also, in the midst of that, worked at a clinic, and I helped people that came in with their immigration problems, and I also went to yoga at the MOA. I had class. I read for like 2 hours. It just varies, and I think that's helped me to, get through it, is that not every day has to look the same, and how you manage your day is different for everyone else, and you can be successful even if you are a procrastinator.
Well, thank you so much. I especially appreciate a procrastinator's perspective. I do feel like I fall into that sometimes. Now, a couple of you mentioned a couple of the tools that you use for planning out your day, a calendar, appreciating that you may have a procrastinator's mindset and midnight is really the time to thrive. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about any tools or strategies that you use to manage your time effectively, or if there are any boundaries, like we mentioned, that you had to set in order to protect that time of yours during this time in law school.
I can go again. I'm a procrastinator, but every Thursday I sit down and I write out all my assignments that I have for the week. And that has really helped me to know, like, when I can have fun and when I have to really lock in and do my homework. I definitely think that you, like having agendas or planners, whatever works for you, a to-do list, that's like the best way to not feel overwhelmed, because sometimes the unknown is more stressful than like the known. Like if something feels too big and overwhelming and you don't know what you have to do to get it done, then you're less likely to do it. But if you know about it and you like write it out, it feels much more manageable.
I use Google Calendar. Somebody else had talked about Google Calendar, but she's my number one. I love Google Calendar. Besides that, I also use Notion. It's like kind of a website designing thing. It's a little niche, but I would suggest it. Templates online. And I, unfortunately, am not that organized in like doing my assignments for the entire week at once. Like I can't. Unfortunately, I'm also a procrastinator in many ways too. And so I usually will just plan out like the next day or two of assignments that I have. And like I'll say today I want to do my property reading and torts reading. And then tomorrow I want to work on my contracts outline. And I want to work on my legal memo that's due. So I usually only do like a day or two at a time. And I think, like I had talked about earlier, setting boundaries on like the time that I'm willing to spend on work has been really helpful. In my undergrad, I had a job. I was participating in a lot of different clubs, and I took obviously classes, and so it was really hard for me to find a balance in my life, and that's why in law school I've really tried to switch it to only doing my work at school to help me find balance, because otherwise I just always will do work because there always feels like there's work that needs to be done, and so cutting myself off at 6:30, sometimes later, or sometimes earlier, honestly. But setting my boundaries has helped me to be able to find time to hang out with friends and find time to be social. And I also would agree that law school is so social. I was not aware of this. Everyone is always chatting. I feel like I should just shut up for at least an hour more every day, because I spend a lot of time talking and it's too much. But yeah, I think there are definitely ways that I could be more effective, but I'm being as effective as I can, I think, with the things I have in place.
Great. I actually agree with Gracie that Google Calendar is my number one. As soon as I find out there's an event or anything, it goes directly on my calendar because I forget. Today's thing, I actually forgot till a couple of days ago when I got a Google Calendar reminder that I signed up and it's this week and not next week. So it gets me through. I also use different tools like Microsoft To Do, where I just kind of add things at the start of the week, kind of basically a mental outline of I need to get evidence done, I need to get this done for work, I have this motion to work on. So I kind of put everything down there. I'm not super organized in terms of planning out when I'm going to study for what. It just kind of depends on my days. As I find time, I'll just get work done. But I do believe that boundaries are super important. I don't study on the weekends, and especially Saturdays, I don't think about law school. I do fun things, and I just totally distract myself from all the dread of all my undue work, and it works great because it's a lot and it's so important to just kind of prioritize your personal life. Other than that, my number one favorite tool is Quimby. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's basically a site where you just put in the case you're studying and you watch a brief video. It has a case brief. The days that I procrastinated my readings and didn't get them done is the days that Quimby got me through. And I don't know if BYU provides a subscription. Oh, they do? Okay, great. I know my law school does too, and I'm so thankful that they pay for that service for us because it helps us, not always have to worry about getting reading done.
Alrighty, so I have, a little bit of a different circumstance in that if I procrastinate something, it just doesn't happen with a child. And so I kind of envy being able to procrastinate. Yeah, that sounds really nice. But, okay, so I have my Excel spreadsheet that I map out 168 hours in the week, and I schedule everything that way. I also absolutely agree, you've got to have a day that you just don't. A day you just don't do law. I find a tremendous amount of relief in variety. If you can find something that is, not necessarily vegging, although if you want to veg on the couch, whatever. But if you can find something that is also interesting to you, that works a different part of your brain, it can still be work. It can still be engaging, and you can still be doing really impactful things. Just be working different parts of your brain, working different skill sets, and you'll feel rested and rejuvenated and able to go another week. I find that that's really helpful. But then I also find that it's helpful to remember how you got here. It is an absolute privilege to be able to spend your days reading and writing and thinking. It's amazing that we have the opportunity to do that. And so sometimes when I get really exhausted and feel like I can't keep going, I remember all of the ways in which I could be spending my time that is not reading and writing and thinking and potentially changing the world, defending democracy, doing all of the things that you go to law school to do.
Thank you. That's very powerful. It's helpful to be cognizant of that, even when studying starts getting late at night. And
yeah, because it's rough. It's a rough 3 years, but it is some of the most rewarding work you will ever do.
Absolutely. Thank you. Gracie brought up an interesting point about how law school is just very different from maybe many of our experiences here in undergrad still. Now, as Gracie mentioned, that you just don't know what it's like until you get there. Could you, starting with Rachel, could you share with us a little bit of your experience of, figuring out that, okay, this is going to be different than my experience in undergrad, and what steady techniques have you found that really have helped you overcome that? So I know one of the professors here at BYU does like a combination of switching between different classes every 20 minutes or so, however many it may work for you. But do you have any study techniques like that you might be able to share with us that could help us going into law school?
Yeah, so my 1L year was a little bit unique in that I was postpartum. I had a 3-month-old, and so I'll only speak to my own experience. But with my postpartum brain, I lost all of my reading comprehension skills. I had to reteach myself how to study. And so I found that going back to fundamentals, pulling out your highlighters, really being tactile and upfront with your study material, annotating everything that you can, and really engaging with your materials up front helped cut down your study time on the back end. You take super detailed notes during class every single day, and you have an outline made for your semester that you can go back and review. And you can just kind of refine that way. It's showing up and putting in work every single day so that by the time you hit the end of the semester, you don't have an overwhelming deluge of information that you have to digest and then turn around and spit back out. So I found that to be really helpful. And then finding other people in which you can bounce ideas back and forth. You will not understand and be able to write about the law until you can articulate it to somebody else. The ability to talk about the legal subjects will show you the weak spots in your study. And so even if you are honest to goodness, there are times when I talk to the mirror when I'm getting ready because it helps you find those loops in your legal argument. Talking to a friend, someone who doesn't understand anything about the law, if you can get them to understand the concept, you're solid. And then going back and studying with, very social, studying with your friends and being able to articulate it to one another really helps with your study as well.
Yeah, I agree with Rachel. It's so important to learn how to read for law school. Because, personally for me in undergrad, I was a political science and psychology major. So I did have reading, but it was nothing like law school, and it was very assignment heavy. Undergrad was all about, 12 Canvas assignments due on the same day. Whereas in law school, especially at the U, we didn't have any assignments in 1L year. Your only grade is your final exam, which is honestly really scary because I've never done that before I got to law school. So it kind of feels like you don't have assignments because it's just reading and you can fall behind super easily. Personally, I with just, thinking, okay, I'll be fine. I don't think I'm going to get cold call tomorrow, so it's fine if I don't read. And it's really easy to fall behind in just your schedule. But it's all about learning how you read best. So when I was starting 1L, I got advice from a few 2Ls that would highlight their textbooks in all these different colors, which would help them case brief. And I tried that for a few weeks, and I realized that it actually wasn't working for me, and that's not how my brain worked. And that color coding was actually taking more time than just me writing in my textbooks exactly what I'm thinking. So it's about what works for you. You're going to hear so many study tips from people that are going to say, study this way, study that way. And you are going to have to do a lot of trial and error. Personally, I think the first month of law school, all I did was try out different things, and it kind of felt like nothing was working for me. I wasn't doing as well as I was hoping I would be. But finally, I came down to studying how it worked for me is kind of taking notes, doing my own case briefs, but then also relying on video lectures and things like that because I was a visual learner and I loved watching those Quimby videos before I started case briefing. So it's about finding what works for you because in undergrad I never had to worry about stuff like this. I feel like it was nothing like law school. But once you have a system down, it gets exponentially easier.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of, as a 1L, as someone who was pre-law last year, right? I received, especially as soon as I got into law school, I received so much advice, literally an overwhelming amount of advice. And it feels difficult because you don't know what to actually implement because you're not in law school, like I was saying earlier. And so I think you should take any advice you do get, anything from us about study techniques, and you should really just do trial and error. You should see what works for you. Some classes require you to brief a little bit differently than others, which is something I didn't really realize. Also, just so we're all on the same page, briefing is just a way of taking notes for law school, in case if you don't know. I didn't know what that meant until I got into law school. And so, yeah, there's different ways to brief, and one of my professors cares a lot more about procedural history than another professor. And so you just adjust your notes and your style of note-taking to exactly what works for you, what helps you best with retention, what helps you best when reviewing, doing and what works best for that specific class. And so I would say just try what works for you. I have had to try a lot of different things, and I still don't know that I know what works for me. We'll see when my grades come out in 2 months. But I would definitely just say, honestly, please, y'all, like I'm kind of scared, but it's okay. I would just say, just try to find what works for you and try to find a way where you can get through the reading in a helpful and understanding way. And one more thing with law school, you do a lot more reviewing after the class than you do in undergrad. So that's something I didn't know, is that law school is not just like prepping before class, it's reviewing after class. And especially at this point in the semester, I do honestly probably more like reviewing after the class than I do prepping for the class. And so there's just different study strategies too.
My first round of finals, I was working on my contracts outline, and I had like so many notes. I had like at least 25 pages of notes, and well, like of an outline. And I remember sitting in like the library and just like straight up having a mental breakdown, like crying, because I was like, wait, I don't know anything about contracts. And I truly believed that. And like for like an hour and a half, my friends had to like calm me down because like I don't know anything about contracts. And it just was so funny because I had been in class every single day and I had been reading all the cases. But sometimes when you get into law school, it just feels like you're in like these like details, and it's so hard to put it all together and like see the big picture. And so my advice would be to, when you're feeling like that, try to look at the big picture. Like, contracts has been done so many times. You're not the first one to like break the code of like what contracts means and what you need to know. There's like so many outlines. At least at BYU, we have an outline bank where students will put in all of their outlines that they've done for the classes. And it might not be like exactly what you have, but like it gives you like a structure of what the class is supposed to teach you, things like that. And of course, I had everything that we had learned in contracts, and my outline was perfectly fine. It was more like of a mental shift where I was like, no, I do know this. I just need to take a step back and realize that I was like in the little details, and I do know it. It's just, you got to look at the big picture. And there's so many helpful resources for that, like outlines, other people's outlines. Quimby has outlines. Barbary, they come in all the time and give you free books that have outlines. So that would be my biggest help, my biggest tip.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the endorsement to try different techniques and figure out what works for you, and to keep that bigger picture in mind. I know that reviewing after class is certainly a new technique to me, so I appreciate that, Gracie. Moving to, we just talked about your study techniques when everything is going well, when you're on top of everything, you know, everything is working right, you're waking up on time. Could you walk us through, and we don't have to start with you, Lois, if someone else has a good idea about this right now. Could you walk us through maybe an instance where, you know, you're yapping too long with your buddies, or you had a family commitment that came up and it kind of distracted you from your normal study plan, and how you overcame that? If you guys had a story about that, I think we'd really appreciate that.
Sure, I can go. I think that the biggest offset for 1L year for me happened near the end of my second semester. I got really sick, and then I had to have an emergency appendectomy, and I was out of school for about 2 weeks right before finals. So it was absolute worst because it was so close to finals that I felt like I'm so behind. And after I got recovered, I had about a week to study, and it was probably the worst week of law school I've ever had, because I was studying, I think, 12 to 15 hours a day, trying to prepare. But what I learned from that is life comes in the way of law school, and you always have to be prepared for that. No matter how much you plan ahead of what your year is going to look like, things will come up. Family commitments, personal things, your health, children, all of that can impact this like so-called perfect schedule you have, and you have to be in the mindset to adapt. And at that point I wasn't. I was just having mental breakdown after breakdown, thinking, how am I going to pass? But after I got through it, I passed. I didn't fail out of law school, guys. It was fine. I was just over dramatic for no reason. I learned that it's important to have the perspective of everything will be okay. Life happens, there will be really tough times, but at the end of the day, it's school. And personally, like, my administration was super helpful. Everyone was really supportive in helping me, change my exam days a couple of times. And, my professors were supporting me in like extra office hours. My friends from law school were sending me all of their class notes that I was missing out on. Professors offered to record lectures. And that's when I realized how amazing of a community you have in law school. There's so much of that, social aspect we've all talked about, but you really start to bond with those people, and everyone, even though, you might think there's a lot of competition, I feel like generally everyone wants to see each other succeed, and everyone is so supportive. That's when I realized just how amazing of a community I had, and I didn't realize just how helpful, everyone was going to be to me. And without that community, without that support from my classmates, from faculty, from professors, I don't know if I would have done, okay in finals. So it's all about the people around you and the positivity they bring.
Amen to everything, truly everything that you just said, because it's so true. Reach out and communicate with your professors, communicate with administration, communicate with your peers. If you've got a hard thing happening, they are willing to support you. I have yet to meet an attorney who is, willing to give you advice at the wazoo about anything, for sure. We all like to hear ourselves talk, but are also very interested in being supportive and helpful, genuinely helpful, not just like, hey, let me know if you need anything, but being genuinely helpful. I think it's also important to remember that as important as law school is, it'll be over pretty quickly. And it is the trajectory of your career that is going to matter, not how you do for a specific day, a specific week, a specific month, or whatnot. What are you trying to do overall with your career? What is the type of person that you are trying to become? What are you wanting to represent professionally? And I think people will be far more willing to judge you on the trajectory of how you have presented yourself in the entirety of your law school career, rather than having one off week, one terrible day, one emergency, an appendectomy and whatnot. Hard things happen, they're going to, but it's the trajectory, the long haul that really matters.
Anybody else want to share a story about an unexpected occurrence in their studying?
I can share, but it's not an unexpected thing that came up, but something. I've only been in school for 2 months, so maybe something will happen in the next month. But so far, nothing unexpected has happened. Crossing my fingers. But I deal with a lot of chronic health issues, and that's something that I found. I've dealt with it for a long time, so it's not something that's new. But I feel like in law school, I've just had to find a way to be patient with myself and recognize that regardless of how I do on this final that I haven't even taken yet, regardless of how I do on these finals or how I'm ranking against my other classmates, there's enough jobs for every single one of us. There's enough jobs for all 115 BYU law grads. There will be a place for me wherever I want to work. And I would agree with everything that they've said as well. There's definitely a community in law school, lots of trauma bonding. My friends are always there to help me with whatever I need, and they're always very patient with me. And I think just recognizing that you're going to get a job no matter what. It doesn't matter if you got the lowest grade in the entire class. As long as you're still in law school and you pass the bar eventually, you'll be fine. And I think just leaning on those around you, because they really are all going through the exact same thing, or if they're your professor, then they have gone through the same thing. Mm-hmm. So.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Really appreciate all of your experiences. And I think from between us 5 up here, we all represent an underrepresented group in one way or the other. And we know that does have an effect in law school. Could you all, maybe starting with Lois here, talk about how maybe that has, in one way or another, if you feel comfortable, how it affected, yourself in the classroom, maybe socially at the law school and talking to other students, and what that means to you as a law student?
Yeah, this coming into law school is entering a new world. It's so much networking. It's very social, like I said before. But sometimes as a minority, it can feel like maybe you don't belong because you don't look like the attorneys that you're networking with, or like you don't have the same background as the people that you go to school with. Like your background is very different. I have definitely felt that while I've been at law school, but I think that what I've also learned is that there are so many people that are kind and that are like wanting to like make you feel included. And even this event, you know, like, and UCLI, what they do, it's like there's so many resources because minorities, people with different backgrounds, not only are they like included and you deserve to be in these kinds of fields, but also they're very much needed. I talked to the Chief Justice of the Utah Supreme Court. Well, yeah, I talked to him and I heard him give a speech once, and he basically his whole speech was, we need minorities, we need women on the Utah like bench. We need them in the courts, we need them, their perspective in the legal field, we need them at firms, and that is true. Like we do need that, and for other people and other generations to feel comfortable and maybe not feel as much as what I felt in certain occasions, we need people to be in this legal field to welcome those future generations.
Sometimes I will read cases for class, and in the case of, there'll be a plaintiff who is a minority in the same way that I'm a minority, and they won't recover in the end, like they won't win. And we don't really get to have opinions on court cases, right? Like we just go to class and we talk about the facts, and then we talk about how this affects law and all that other stuff. But I feel as though my identity as a woman, my identity as someone who's come from a low-income background, and the other things that make me unique really ties me to them, and it motivates me to change the justice system, and it motivates me to pursue the things I want to pursue. So I think that the things that make me a minority only make me want to continue in law school even more. Like the differences that I have that my classmates might not necessarily have, really just, not only are they celebrated with the people that I am with, because I do feel like it's a very accepting atmosphere, but I do feel as though they motivate me to help to make a difference, because I'm not seeing lawyers or attorneys that maybe are the same as me, or that care about the things in the same way I do. It motivates me to just want to make a difference in a unique way.
Yeah, I agree with everything Gracie and Lois said. It can often be really discouraging to pursue the law as a minority. Personally, like when I was working at the court and then at a law firm, I did not meet any attorneys who had even like remotely similar backgrounds as me. You know, being Pakistani American, being a Muslim, being a woman, I checked all the boxes of being a minority in Utah, and it was very discouraging. There were times when I was unsure whether I would even be accepted in this field, because I always had this notion that, you know, the law is a very male-dominant, like white male type of field, right? And that I wouldn't really get accepted the same way that some of my peers will. But that also served as a motivation. Seeing the lack of diversity in the legal field ended up being one of my motivations, because I thought about how a state like Utah isn't going to change. The demographics of our legal community aren't going to change if minorities like myself choose to stay here. I could have chosen to go to law school out of state in a place where I did feel more accepted, but then communities like ours will never change. And, you know, most of the people, especially in our criminal justice system, even in Utah, are, you know, people of color. There's this disproportionate amount of people of color in our criminal justice system, but their lawyers don't reflect that. They don't feel connected to the people that are representing them, because that's just what our cultural makeup is like here. So instead of letting that discourage me in the end, I decided that it's only going to get better if we all work together, especially like seeing everyone in this room. It's so encouraging, because most days I walk into rooms and I'm the only person of color, so it's just so great to, you know, see so much diversity in one room here. And I will say, I thought that it's not going to be as inclusive as it ended up being. Everyone in law school has, gone out of their ways to make all of us feel accepted. And organizations like UCLI, the Utah Minority Bar Association, they put on such amazing events where, minority attorneys come and like network with us law students, and they kind of give us encouragement that everything's going to be okay, and we are supported, and, we are just as capable as everyone else. And I think that these communities have really helped me succeed in law school. So thank you, UCLI.
No, it's true. Amen to everything that was said. I think the only thing I would add, along with the other excellent comments, is that while it is exhausting to continue moving forward and to show up and be different from all of your colleagues, at the same time, the alternative is intolerable. People need everyone's perspective here. Majority, minority, whatnot. You offer a unique perspective that needs to be understood, that brings value to your clients, that brings value to your society and your community. And the alternative of not hearing that perspective is absolutely intolerable. You move forward because you want to see that kind of change. And so that's just my 2 cents there. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, thank you all so much. That was, really impactful. I really appreciate it. Now, I want to talk about who your hardest professor is. No, I'm just kidding. I'd like to really hear what support systems that you found in law school that you feel have most, been most impactful for you throughout between your 2 months or your 3 years, and if BYU or Utah has any specific resources for students of underrepresented groups that could be available for all of us as pre-law students.
I'll start if that's all right. Okay, so the U was fantastic in supporting new moms. They have lactation rooms on every floor. They're willing to work with you as far as ADA accommodations if you need help with that. We've got, about a quarter of our students actually between different dyslexia and learning disabilities and whatnot have accommodations. And so they're really willing to work with you regardless of where you're at. They're interested in helping. I would imagine that BYU is very similar in that it's a very supportive environment. If you are interested in succeeding, they are interested in giving you the tools in order to do that. So I'd say that. Being excessively clear in your communication with your support systems at home, supporting you in your life, whether that is with your partner, with your parents, with a church community, whatever it is, making sure that you have really clear communication of when you're absolutely unavailable and you can't give in the way that you normally do or what you need. For example, give a good example. My husband is an excellent cook. I love that. But for a long time, I was in charge of meal planning. I didn't have capacity for it. So at some point, I'm like, okay, you cook, you get to figure out the ingredients, you're going to meal plan because I simply do not have bandwidth. Now, will I be taking that back on the second graduation comes? Yes, because at a certain point, we need to work on it. But being really clear about what your capacity is with your support system, when you need assistance, when you need support, when you can step in and support them. It's a give and take relationship with all of your support systems. And so being really mindful to take care of everybody in that way.
Yeah, I agree with Rachel. It's all about knowing how to communicate when you need help and understanding it. At the U, I agree, we have a really amazing support system. We have a student success team. We have an embedded counselor just for us law students. We have an amazing career team. So it's about recognizing when you need help and when you need to utilize those resources. I'll say personally, even, our deans are so amazing. There have been so many times when I've just had to go into their offices and just kind of vent and let it all out to someone who also understands, and there's no judgment in that, right? Because a lot of the times, the struggles you're going through in law school, the only people that truly understand it are the ones that have gone through it themselves. So it's so nice to have such a supportive environment. And then I think my friends in law school have also been a really big support system. We have all helped each other through mental breakdowns and just days when you don't understand what is going on. So that has been a really good support system. But at the same time, I think it's really important to have a support team that exists outside of law school and have boundaries, because you see these people majority of your week, every single day. And every time you see a lot of your law school friends, it ends up complain, like everyone just ends up complaining about law school. That is all it all comes down to. Even if you're just hanging out like at a bar after school, the same thing happens. Everyone starts ranting about professors. And so it's so important to take away from that and have friends and family members that are not going to talk to you about law school, that are not going to remind you about all the stresses you have going on all week. And in fact, one thing I do is when I'm hanging out with my friends on the weekends, I say, hey, I don't want to talk about law school, don't ask me about it. And it works. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to worry about it. So it's about recognizing what kind of help you need and when. But I will say everyone in my life has been so supportive, and they are the reason why I'm able to do well.
Yeah, I would echo everything that's been said. I definitely agree. Being clear in your communication. Like, people know, you can say, like, I'm in law school, and people are like, oh, you know, I get it. And so I think that just being clear that, like, you are doing something that takes up a lot of, not only your time, because, like, obviously there's always time. Like, you always have 5 minutes to respond to a text. You know what I mean? Like, you can always find those 5 minutes, but it's like the intellectual ability that I have to respond to that text is like so diminished from what it was like 3 months ago. And so it's hard for me, I think, to just like find, I think, the balance. And so to do that, I think I've just been trying to have clear communication with those around me. And I would say, with support, you can only be supported if you allow yourself to be supported. Like, it's hard to recognize when you're struggling. And I would say that right now as someone who, like, sometimes does not recognize when they're struggling. It's hard to recognize when you do need support, and when you do need to call a friend, or when you do need to do something to take your mind off of law school. And so just being patient and, like, open and honest with yourself about what you're going through, and, like, recognizing how much time am I spending on self-care, how much time am I spending on law school, am I talking to people, am I shutting everyone out of my life, just recognizing the things you're going through so you can ensure that you are getting support from the people in your life and the people at your law school that do support you.
My family lives in Kentucky, and I have no family members in Utah, so my number one support has been my friends. And this faculty at BYU also does a great job of asking me, like, how I'm doing, and texting me. With, like, the directors that I'm close with, they'll text me. And I think other than that, I think you can also be your own support by knowing when you need like a time to just be on your own and do things that you love, and go on a hike or go on a walk, or paint. I don't know. I think that will really help.
Thank you all so much for those really good endorsements of utilizing your support system to really make it through law school. I think as we wrap up with the question that we all really want to know is which team is going to win the football game. No, I'm just kidding. For our final question, I think I'd like you to each think about yourselves as if you're sitting in one of these chairs out in the audience, and give one or two pieces of advice to a prospective law student who may be concerned about, you know, their academic performance, or balancing their family obligations or their cultural familiar responsibilities. What would you say to yourself if you were sitting with us today? Lois, would you mind starting?
Yes. With academic performance, I think law school is very intimidating, and a lot of times people mean it to be that way to kind of keep people that should be in the legal field out. And that's not what we want. We want people in the legal field. We want all kinds of backgrounds. And I have no doubt that every single one of you in this room could go to law school and graduate and be an attorney, and successful attorney. I've known several people. I mean, I was talking to friends last week, and he was telling me that his GPA in high school was like a 1.7, something crazy like that. And he was in like the top 10 in our class. So it's like, you can do it, you know, like, don't ever let your like lack of like perfect GPA in high school impede you from coming to law school. Like I said before, we need people exactly like you in the legal field desperately. So you can do it.
I would say so a year ago, like last Saturday or this Saturday, I took the LSAT, the November LSAT, and I did worse on my second LSAT than I did on my first. And I felt incredibly discouraged. I was like, are you for real? Like, I actually used free resources the first time, and then I used paid resources the second time, and I did worse. Like, that's so annoying. I spent so much money to do worse. But I think, after that, I just had like mental breakdown after mental breakdown, feeling like the legal field was not something that was meant for me. It's expensive to go to law school, like incredibly expensive. It's incredibly expensive to apply to law school, as you guys I'm sure are seeing right now, if you haven't seen. But it's something that just feels like there's so many like hoops and so many fences and so many things you have to like cross and get over in order to get into it. But I would say going along that process has really helped me to like find myself and find what's important to me. Law school, being a lawyer is something that I care about and something that I want to do so bad that I'm willing to spend a bunch of money on the LSAT and fail it. I'm willing to, or do worse. It's something that I'm willing to spend 50 plus hours every single week studying, and also chatting. And it's something that I just care about so much that I'm willing to sacrifice these things in my life. And recognizing that it's only 3 years to do something that I care about and something that I want to do, helps me to just have perspective on what I'm doing, on what I've been through, on that whole application process when I was applying. So I would just say, like, find what's motivating you, like what's that internal thing. Maybe you've written your personal statement and that can help you to remember what's important to you as you're trying to think about law school. But just thinking about what's important to you, what's motivating you, and let that continue to motivate you for the next 3 years. Let that drive something in you that you've never had it drive in you before. Yeah.
Right, I agree with both of you. And one thing that I didn't realize I was doing to myself was I was tying my self-worth to my academics. I am assuming that most people in this room have been used to being at the top. So being at the top in undergrad, always getting the best grades, always being, the smartest in the room. So you kind of start to tie your self-worth to how you're doing professionally and academically. But when you come to law school, like your peers are all from that same background of being the smartest in undergrad, being so intelligent, being so accomplished. And so you shouldn't think that your performance in law school is indicative of what kind of lawyer you're going to be and how good of an attorney you're going to be. Majority, like, people come into law school thinking they're going to be in the top half, but that's not possible. In our law school, there's 97 students, right? So only like 48 can be in the top half and the rest have to be in the bottom half. And that's something that I wasn't willing to accept as something to go through. So when grades came back after first semester, I did worse than I thought I was going to do. And it totally wrecked me. I felt like I worked so hard, I studied so much, and I still didn't do as great. And I thought, I'm not going to find a job, I'm going to be the worst attorney, no one's going to hire me. But a few months later, I had a job lined up, I had everything working out. I realized that our GPA isn't who we are. How you do in law school is not going to determine how amazing of an attorney you're going to be. And your competition, your peers are all so intelligent that it's bound to happen that someone is going to be at the top and someone is going to be at the bottom. But I think Gracie said this earlier, that even the person at the bottom is going to find a job. Mm-hmm. They are also going to be just as successful as the person who's number one in the class. And so when I was starting law school and when I was in the, in your shoes, I think my whole identity, my whole, self-esteem was tied to my academics, and I have come really far from that and realizing I'm more than just a law student. I'm more than just an aspiring attorney. I'm a human, and I need to value myself above all of that. So that's something to keep in mind. Life is a lot bigger than just law school or being an attorney.
Yeah. Oh. We have some really smart humans on this panel, with me accepted. But these are some really smart people. You should definitely take what they say to heart. My 2 cents would be that you have the capacity to do this. You can overcome any of the hurdles. You can do the hard work. You can be here. And so just making sure that you don't sell yourself short before you get started. You can do hard things, and you have the capacity to do all of the things. It may be messy. It will not be perfect. It will not be in the way that you thought it would be, but you'll get through it. 1% of this Earth's population goes to grad school. This is a tremendous, very specialized skill set. You're going to find a use for it even if you don't practice law. There are plenty of people who get JDs and go on to do other really important work. But it is really important to know how our society has been built, who built it, why they built it that way, so that you can continue to survive and thrive in that same society and impact change if you would like to. And so if you're discouraged, you got it. There are plenty of people willing to support you and sustain you as you do this work. You'll grow, you'll develop, you'll kind of look back at the person you were when you started law school and barely recognize them. And most of the time that'll be for the better, because you will have grown and been empowered in a way that you didn't think was possible beforehand. I know that a lot of people get really nervous around lawyers, and it's because they don't know the limits of what lawyers can do. Being able to sit in the room and realize that there's a tremendous amount of power with your peers. There'll be judges, there'll be governors, there'll be legislators. There's a lot of power in the classroom of a law school, and you get to be a part of it. And it's just a really cool experience to no longer listen to the radio and hear fear-mongering and whatnot. You know what the law says. You can go and figure it out. You can find the answer for yourselves. You don't have to be beholden to pundits or whatnot. It's a really cool experience. And so if you're even thinking about it, find a way to do it. You got it. You've got great resources in UCLI. Feel free to contact any of us. I'm sure we'd all be happy. I have yet to find a lawyer who wasn't delighted to help in some way and give you all of the advice. Just do it.
All right, thank you so much. Let's have a round of applause for our panelists. All right, I think we still have about just a little more than 5 minutes, but we'll close this out and turn it back to Caitlin.
Well, the last event for the day is the BYU Law School tours. So you all had a link. We tried to have you sign up for that in advance so that they could plan the amount of student ambassadors they would need. But if you didn't sign up for the tour and you'd really like to go, I bet they would squeeze you in. So I think that for anyone wanting to do the tour, they will be meeting right there. You'll be meeting Dean Grover at that door. And is it the case that if someone didn't sign up but is really passionate about joining the tour last minute, that we could squeeze them in?
We have to charge a fee, but...
Okay. So before we do that, though, we have some wrap-up remarks. And I'm sorry, I just realized I don't think I introduced myself, but my name is Caitlin Piper. I'm the executive director of the Utah Center for Legal Inclusion. So we've had the privilege of being your event hosts today, I guess, and are so happy to have met all of you and worked with you today. A couple final plugs from UCLI. So the Utah Center for Legal Inclusion is a nonprofit organization whose aim is to make the legal profession more representative, inclusive, all the good stuff. We offer an LSAT scholarship for people like you, students at this stage of your law school career. Please follow us on social media to find out when that's opening and where to apply. We offer a pre-law fellowship cohort, which is a 1-year cohort program that includes not only LSAT study, but also very valuable law school consultation from a private consultant about how to write your statements of intent and how to have the best shot at getting in. Noah is part of that program, as is Victoria, who you may have met, so you can chat with them, as is Ruby, who is here. So you can chat with them if you have any questions about what that fellowship program is and whether it might be a good fit for you. We offer this pre-law symposium every year, every fall, and we swap off law schools. So BYU Law was our kind host this year. U Law will be our host next fall. Date TBD, which is why it's important that you follow us on social media, because all this stuff happens quickly. And then once you are in law school, we'll have, there are scholarships and fellowships for 1Ls, 2Ls, and 3Ls. So nothing that would cover tuition, but opportunities that can hopefully help you throughout your journey. So I feel like I'm missing something, but we also have an internship program that is primarily for undergrads. We tend to hire a little bit more in the upperclassmen junior, senior range, but sometimes we'll consider sophomores as well, and encourage you all to take a look at that. I think that's everything for the UCLI stuff. What's that? Oh, right. Okay. So one thing that's really helpful. Okay. And also another thank you for our sponsors. We put this up here not just to acknowledge them and their financial generosity, but also to let you know, like, who's in your corner. Like, there is a whole community here in Utah that is committed to seeing a new, more vibrant, more diverse like legal community, and who is willing to put money behind that, and who's rooting for you and cheering you on. So I hope that when you see this, you can also know that these are not just, people who throw money at this event. These are people who are actively supporting you and your peers in this journey, which I know is really daunting. So thank you again to our sponsors. And then finally, please, please, please pull out your phones and grab a pic of this QR code. Anything you share in this survey will be used to help us make this event better for next year's participants. So your voice is really valuable, and if you could just take, I think it's probably about 5 minutes or less, we would really appreciate the feedback. And then before I turn the mic over to Haiti Achakar, who you've all met, I wanted to share that she is the reason this symposium exists. This is her brainchild. She just realized one day, looked around and realized that nothing like this was happening in the state, and that it was a real big hole, I guess, in the programming and resources and whatever. So huge round of applause to Haiti.
Thank you so much. That's so nice. Well, really, it's a committee that does it all, right? Like, it's Caitlin that does all the hard work and the committee, but I think I just wanted to take a minute to just talk to you guys. I know you're tired and you've had a lot of information today, but when I went to law school, it was a second career for me. I don't want to tell you my age that I was, because I don't want you to do math, but it was a second career, and I was a single mom. I had 2 kids. I'm not from here. I'm from New York. I don't have any family here. And I had the audacity, because I think I'm like Michael Lynn. I'm just ordinary, right? And I had the audacity to follow a dream, right? And I didn't have any information, and that was really, really overwhelming. So I know that you may be overwhelmed for different reasons today. Maybe you have too much information now, but I think this is a better place to be. I think that the thing I want you to take away from today is that you only need to do the next thing. You don't need to do everything. The next thing might be getting a really good GPA, having an undergrad, a major that lights you up, that gets you excited so that you can get a great GPA. In whatever. It could be piano, like Wayne, who was up here today. What matters is that you do well and that you're happy and healthy and whole, right? The next thing may be preparing for the LSAT. The next thing may be that personal statement. You just have to do one thing at a time. Don't let the bigness of it overwhelm you, because if I could do it, you can all do it. And we need good people in the law. We need representation. We need passionate people. So we want you to be our colleagues. So come join us. Thank you for being here. And I think we need to thank some more people. No. Thank you. Amanda, we wouldn't have this day without Amanda. She is why everything worked. So give her the biggest hand. And you heard enough from me, but please fill out the survey. We want to keep improving this event. Thank you again. And if you want my email, come talk to me. I'm happy to chat with any of you, go to lunch, whatever.